Maya Thompson stood perfectly still beneath the buzzing lights outside City Hall, her heels aligned with a faded tape marking where visitors were told to wait. The glass doors reflected her back at her, navy blazer, neutral expression, hands folded over a thin folder stamped with official seals. She could hear rain tapping somewhere beyond the overhang, smell the metallic tang of wet concrete, feel the low hum of authority vibrating through building. She had learned patience early. Patience kept you safe. Hey! You, don't loiter here. The voice cut sharp in public. Maya turned. The police officer's eyes didn't soften when they met Hayes. They skimmed her, paused, dismissed. His hand rested casually on his belt, as if the building belonged to him alone. I'm waiting for my appointment, she said, evenly. The officer laughed under his breath. Funny, people like you always are. A few heads turned. No one spoke. Maya felt something old and heavy settle behind her ribs, the familiar calculation. Volume, posture, breath. How much dignity could she afford before it cost her safety? I was told to stand right here, she said. The officer stepped closer. Too close. His voice dropped, satisfied and cruel. You don't get to tell me where you belong. The words landed harder than a shove. Maya didn't move. For a moment, everything held. The air, the stays, the officer's smile, until his hand reached out, confident, unquestioned. And as metal clicked around her wrist, Maya realized with cold clarity that the folder in her hands contained the very report that could end his career. Maya Thompson stood beneath the flickering fluorescent lights outside City Hall, her hands wrapped around a folder pressed tight to her chest. The evening air smelled of rain and hot asphalt, and every few seconds a metal detector beeped as another visitor stepped inside. She had arrived early, patient by habit, calm by training. This audit interview was routine. That was what she kept telling herself as she waited. You need to move, a voice said. She looked up. Officer Daniel Kessler leaned against the wall, one hand resting on his belt, eyes sliding over hers as she was something left behind. I'm in line, Maya replied, keeping her voice level. Security told me to wait here. Kessler snorted. You people always say that. Her fingers tightened on the folder. Excuse me. I said, step aside, he replied. You're blocking the entrance. A white woman behind Maya shifted, uncomfortable, but said nothing. Maya glanced back at the empty space behind her. No one's behind me, she said. I'm not blocking anything. Kessler straightened, boots scraping. Don't get smart with me. I'm not, Maya said. I'm just waiting. Waiting for what? He asked. Someone like you doesn't have business here. The words landed like cold water. Maya felt a familiar burn rise in her chest, the calculation every black professional learned early. Breathe. Don't escalate. Don't give him an excuse. I have an appointment, she said. Second floor. Kessler laughed softly. Sure you do. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. ID now. Maya hesitated, then reached into her purse. She held the badge and driver's license together, careful, visible. Hey! He took them, stuttered her name too long. Maya Thompson, he read aloud. What are you, a clerk? I'm an external auditor, she said. Kessler looked up, amused. For who? For the state. The words seemed to irritate him. He handed back the ID slowly. You don't look like an auditor. Maya met his eyes. What does one look like? His jaw tightened. What's your tone? I'm being respectful, she said. I'd like to continue waiting. Not here, he said. You can wait across the street. That's not what security told me. I am security, Kessler snapped. The metal detector beeped again. People stared. Maya felt heat crawl up her neck. Is there a reason you're singling me out? She asked quietly. Kessler smiled, thin and sharp. I'm doing my job. A second officer, younger, hovered near the door. Dan, she's fine, he murmured. Kessler ignored him. Last warning, he said to Maya. Move, or I'll move you. Silence stretched. Maya thought of her mother's voice, steady and tired. Don't disappear yourself to make others comfortable. She squared her shoulders. I'm not moving, she said. Kessler's hand closed around her arm. "Don't touch me," Maya said. Loud now. Gasps rippled. Phones lifted. The younger officer froze. Kessler leaned in, breath sour. "You should have listened," he whispered. Maya's heart pounded as cold metal clicked around her wrist. The folder fell, papers spilling across the floor. Stamped confidential. As Kessler pulled her toward the door, Maya caught sight of the seal on the top page, the one marked City Police Department. Kessler glanced down. His smile faltered. The holding room smelled like disinfectant and old coffee, the kind of smell that clung to fabric long after you left. Maya sat on the hard bench with her hands cuffed in front of her, posture straight despite the ache in her shoulders. The metal bit into her wrists every time she shifted. Across the room, Officer Kessler leaned against the counter, relaxed, chatting with another cop as if nothing unusual had happened. "So what's the charge?" the desk sergeant asked, not looking up from his screen. "Disorderly conduct," Kessler said easily. "Refusal to comply. Interfering with security operations." Maya's head snapped up. "That's not what happened." The sergeant finally glanced at her, eyes flat. You'll get your chance." "I'm getting my chance now," she said, keeping her voice steady. "He approached me while I was waiting in a designated area. I followed instructions. I asked questions. That's not a crime." Kessler chuckled. "See? Mowdy. Exactly what I said." The sergeant sighed, fingers tapping the keyboard. "Let's keep it professional." "I am being professional," Maya said. "I'm also an auditor for the state. I was here on official business." Kessler laughed outright. "You expect us to believe that?" "I don't need you to believe it," she replied. "I need you to verify it." The sergeant hesitated, then looked at Kessler. "You run her name." "Came back clean," Kessler said. "No priors." "Of course not," Maya said, "because I don't belong here." The sergeant stood. "All right, let's process her. We'll sort it out after." Processing felt deliberately slow. Fingerprints pressed too hard. A camera flashed before Maya was ready. An officer recited her rights in a monotone that suggested he'd stopped listening years ago. "You have the right to remain silent," he said. "I want to make a phone call," Maya replied. "After booking," he said. Kessler watched the whole thing, arms crossed, satisfaction barely hidden. "Should have just moved," he said conversationally. Maya met his gaze. "You know this won't end the way you think it will." He leaned closer. "It always does." They took her belongings, placing the folders separately. Maya watched it disappear behind the desk, her chest tightening. "Those documents are state property," she said. "They are confidential." Kessler shrugged. "Not your problem anymore." In the cell, time stretched. The walls were scuffed, etched with names and dates. Someone had scratched "I can't breathe" into the paint, the letters uneven and angry. Maya swallowed hard and sat, folding her hands to stop them from shaking. When the door finally opened, a female officer stood there, clipboard in hand. "You get your phone call," she said quietly. Maya dialed from memory, fingers trembling just once. "Angela," she said when her attorney answered. "I've been arrested." "What?" Angela's voice sharpened. "On what grounds?" "Disorderly conduct. City Hall. It's complicated." Silence, then controlled fury. "Are you safe?" "I think so," Maya said. "But they have my audit materials." Another pause. "Maya, listen to me. Do not say anything else to anyone there. I'm on my way." When the call ended, the cell felt smaller. Maya closed her eyes, breathing through the weight pressing down on her chest. She thought of all the compliance trainings, all the memos about neutrality and professionalism. None of them covered this. Hours later, or maybe minutes, time had lost meaning. The sergeant returned. "You're being released," he said. "No charges filed at this time." Maya stood slowly. An apology would be appropriate. He didn't meet her eyes. "You're free to go." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick and shining under streetlights. Angela waited near the curb, face tight with anger. She pulled Maya into a brief, fierce hug. "They had no right," she said. "I know." Maya replied, her voice steady even as exhaustion settled into her bones. Across the plaza, Kessler exited with a group of officers, laughing. He glanced over, smirked, and turned away. Maya watched him go, fingers curling into her palms. Somewhere inside, something shifted, not rage, not fear, but resolve. He thought this was over. It was just beginning. By morning, the story inside Maya Thompson had already split into two versions. In one, she was a woman who had been confused outside City Hall. In the other, she was a professional who had been deliberately targeted. The city would decide which version it preferred. Maya sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, untouched coffee cooling beside her. Angela paced, phone pressed to her ear, voice clipped and controlled. "No, I don't care what the incident log says," she snapped. "I want the body cam inventory. All of it." Maya watched steam curl from the mug and disappear. Her wrists still ached where the cuffs had bitten into her skin. Angela hung up and exhaled. "They are circling already." Maya nodded. "Of course they are." Her phone buzzed. A name flashed that made her straighten instantly. Caleb Wright, State Audit Division Director. She answered. "Caleb." "Maya," he said, voice low. "Tell me this isn't true." She closed her eyes briefly. "It's true." A pause. Papers shuffled. "You were arrested." "Detained. Released without charges." "For standing outside City Hall." "Yes." Caleb exhaled slowly. "Jesus." Angela leaned closer, listening. "I missed a preliminary briefing," Maya said, "because of the arrest." "I know," Caleb replied. "That's why I'm calling. Do you know what today's meeting was about?" Maya looked down at the copy of her report on the table, pages marked with tabs and handwritten notes. "The police department's discretionary fund discrepancies," she said. "Among other things," Caleb said grimly, "your report triggered alarms all the way up to the comptroller's office." Angela raised her eyebrows. Caleb continued, "We're talking unaccounted overtime payouts, vendor contracts routed through shell LLCs, equipment purchases that don't exist." Silence filled the line. "And yesterday," Caleb added, "you were arrested by a city police officer." Maya's jaw tightened. "Officer Daniel Kessler." "That name is already being flagged," Caleb said. "Internal Affairs pulled his file this morning." Angela crossed her arms. "Let me guess. Prior complaints." "5," Caleb said. "All closed. All unsubstantiated." Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. "Of course they were." Caleb hesitated. "Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." She straightened. "Ask." "Do you believe yesterday was retaliation?" Maya thought of Kessler's smile. The confidence. The way no one stopped him. "Yes," she said, "even if he didn't know who I was yet. The system did." Angela nodded slowly. Caleb exhaled again. Then this just became bigger. "How big?" Maya asked. "Well," he said, "big enough that the governor's office called me at 6 this morning." Angela let out a low whistle. "They're concerned about optics," Caleb continued. "A black state auditor arrested while investigating police misconduct? That's not something they can bury." Maya stated the report. "They'll try." "They already are," Caleb said. "City Legal requested a delay on the audit. Claim procedural irregularities." Angela snorted. "Translation, panic." Caleb's tone hardened. "I denied it." Maya looked up. "You did?" "I did," he said, "and I reassigned additional staff to your audit, effective immediately." Angela smiled for the first time that morning. "But," Caleb added, "this puts you directly in the line of fire." Maya didn't hesitate. "I was already there." Silence hung heavy. "Maya," Caleb said quietly, "you don't have to lead this. I can pull you off and—" "No," she said. The word came out firm, unshaking. "If I step away now, they win twice." Angela placed a hand on her shoulder. Caleb nodded, though Maya couldn't see it. "All right," he said. "Then we do this clean. By the book. Every conversation documented. Every meeting recorded. They already broke the book, Maya replied. Which is why, Caleb said, we're going to make them read it. After the call ended, the apartment felt strangely quiet. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere in the city, distant but constant. Angela pulled a legal pad toward her. We need to assume everything you do from this point forward will be scrutinized. I know, Maya said. They'll question your objectivity. They already have. They'll paint you as emotional. Maya met her eyes. I am emotional. Angela paused, then nodded. Good. Just don't let them use it against you. Maya picked up the report, flipping to the first page. The seal of the city police department stared back at her, bold and official. Yesterday, that seal had been on the floor at her feet while a man with a badge tightened cuffs around her wrists. She remembered his words. You don't get to tell me where you belong. Maya closed the folder carefully. They made a mistake, she said. Angela tilted her head. Which one? Assuming I be quiet, Maya replied. Outside, a news van slowed near the curb, its logo bright against the gray morning. A reporter glanced up at Maya's window, curiosity already forming. The story was moving now, and it was no longer just hers. Inside the precinct, the air smelled of paper, stale coffee, and the faint musk of too many bodies in fluorescent light. Officer Daniel Kessler leaned back in his chair, feet propped on the desk, spinning a pen between his fingers. Around him, the hum of computers and quiet chatter made the room feel almost normal, but every glance carried a tension that no one wanted to name. Dan, Sergeant Harper said, leaning against the doorway, voice low, careful. You realize she's an auditor now. Kessler shrugged, still spinning the pen. So what? People think a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. Yeah, Harper muttered. But if the higher-ups find out you... Relax, Kessler interrupted. They are going to believe me. Standard procedure. She got mouthy. I kept it professional. I followed the rules. Harper's eyes narrowed. The rules? You made her stand in the rain. Dan. Public humiliation counts as... Counts as nothing, Kessler said. No cameras saw anything. Body cams down. Nothing happened. Case closed. In the corner, Officer Jennings typed slowly, glancing between the two. I don't know, he said softly. It feels off. Kessler shot him a look. Feelings don't make law. Don't make policy. Don't make precedent. Keep your mouth shut. Harper exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose. You know, the union has your back, but this is bigger than any complaint form. I've handled bigger, Kessler said, leaning forward, voice smooth, measured. Besides, what's bigger than a woman standing outside City Hall? Nothing happened. No evidence. And honestly, who's going to take her seriously anyway? Jennings looked down at the keyboard, chewing on the inside of his cheek. Kessler's confidence radiated like a shield, protecting him from even questioning eyes. No one dared challenge it. Meanwhile, somewhere upstairs, Maya was already in motion. Caleb had sent memos, reassigned staff, and begun requesting data. Her team worked quietly but quickly, red flags flashing across spreadsheets, email threads, and vendor invoices. She knew Kessler couldn't stop that. He couldn't stop facts. Back in the precinct, Kessler rubbed his jaw. I don't care what she's carrying, he muttered. A badge, papers, whatever. She's just a woman in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's a lesson. Don't get in my way. Harper shook his head. You should have left it alone. Now we're looking at an internal review, and word spreading. People outside the department are talking. Kessler chuckled. Let them. They're irrelevant. They always are. Later, in the supervisor's office, the police chief scanned through a report on Maya's arrest. No charges, he said, frowning. But she's an auditor for the state. The deputy shrugged. So, the chief said slowly, that means someone up top is going to want answers. And when that happens, our friend Daniel's actions could be questioned. Daniel's always careful, the deputy said. Is by the book. The chief's jaw tightened. His lucky the video's missing. The thin blue silence had been stretched too far. Between officers, between departments, and between what was said and what was ignored, a network of tacit approval and fear had grown. Maya's arrest had been a small fissure. The quake was coming. Meanwhile, Maya drafted emails, double-checked the ledger, and compared every line item against the department's financial disclosures. Her pulse was steady, though her mind raced. She imagined Kessler's smirk as he tightened those cuffs, the casual way he dismissed her. She typed, "All transactions under review. Kessler's oversight and conduct noted. Documentation attached. Please confirm receipt." A reply came instantly from Caleb. "Good. Keep it thorough. Every discrepancy logged. Remember, this is bigger than a single officer." Outside, a journalist posted a tweet about a black woman detained for standing in line. Notifications pinged. Views climbed. Retweets spread the story. And suddenly, Kessler's carefully constructed bubble of impunity felt thinner. Kessler, meanwhile, returned to his patrol, unaware that every call he answered, every report he filed, was now under scrutiny. The network of silence that had shielded him so far was fracturing, thread by thread. And Maya? She knew the first line of that fracture, like the sound of glass cracking slowly in a quiet room. Somewhere, someone was finally listening. The thin blue silence had a crack, and it was growing wider with every click of her keyboard. The morning news hit Maya's apartment like a thunderclap. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Text messages, emails, and social media notifications piling into a relentless digital avalanche. Headlines blared across screens. Black woman detained outside City Hall. State audit underway. City police officer accused of targeting auditor. Public outcry grows over questionable arrest. Maya stared at the glowing screen, coffee untouched, wrist still tender from the cuffs. Her stomach twisted, but there was no time for self-pity. She had a job to do. Angela, seated across from her, scrolled through the trending posts. "They are already spinning it," she said, lips pressed tight. "Some outlets are calling it a misunderstanding. Others are quoting the department statement. Officer followed protocol." Maya's eyes narrowed. Protocol is supposed to protect the public, not intimidate them. Outside, the city was alive with rumors. People in line at coffee shops whispered, glancing at their phones. A news van parked across the street, camera lens trained on City Hall. Reporters approached random pedestrians, asking if they'd seen the incident with the auditor. Each answer, each shaky statement, fed a narrative of systemic failure, of unchecked power. By mid-morning, Caleb called again. "Maya, I'm sending a press liaison. We need to get ahead of this before it spins completely out of control." Maya rubbed her temples. "I don't want attention. I want the audit done." Caleb's voice was firm. "You're already in the spotlight. Use it. Frame the facts. Control the record." A knock at the door announced a liaison, a woman named Denise. She moved with precision, laptop under one arm, notes in hand. "We need a clear statement," she said. "Short, precise. Focus on the facts. Emphasize your role as an auditor, not a victim." Maya nodded, already thinking about the numbers. "Then I'll need to review all interactions with Kessler. Every call, report, email, every document we can verify." Denise raised an eyebrow. "You mean everything that happened yesterday?" "Yes," Maya said. "Everything." They worked for hours. Statements were drafted, revised, and polished. Photos of Maya standing outside City Hall, calm yet resolute, were circulated to the media. Her colleagues, some hesitant, some openly supportive, stood by her story. Slowly, the narrative shifted. The public began to see not a confrontation born of defiance, but one born of professional duty. Meanwhile, Kessler sat in his squad room, unaware that every word, every action, every omission of his past was now being examined. Past complaints resurfaced, 5 prior cases dismissed without consequence, but now digital copies existed, accessible and undeniable. Rumors spread quietly among his peers, whispers of internal review, whispers of accountability. The hum of computers and radios became louder in his mind. Something was changing. By evening, news outlets ran segments highlighting Maya's credentials, her meticulous attention to detail, and her calm under pressure. Interviews with civic leaders praised her courage, carefully navigating systemic obstacles. Tweets and posts applauded her poise, questioning the department's handling of the incident. Kessler's name began surfacing in comment sections, not in praise, but in suspicion. Angela leaned back in her chair, exhausted but satisfied. "They are finally hearing you," she said. "Not the story they wanted to tell, but the story you need them to tell." Maya nodded, eyes on the city skyline. She thought of her folder, now safely back in state custody, the detailed audit ready to expose corruption. The folder had been more than paper. It was evidence, truth, and power wrapped into a single stack. Yesterday, it had been a target. Today, it was a shield. And Kessler? He had no idea the world was turning against him. Every lie he had relied on, every silence he had depended upon, was crumbling. The public record was alive, and it was moving in Maya's favor. Still, she felt the weight of the ordeal pressing down. Visibility came with its own dangers, threats, scrutiny, and the emotional toll of being both symbol and professional. She breathed deeply, reminding herself, control what you can, endure what you cannot. The fight had just begun, but the first dominoes were falling. Somewhere downtown, sirens blared again, a city unaware that its quiet reckoning had already started. Maya closed her laptop and exhaled. For the first time since the arrest, she allowed herself a small measure of satisfaction. She was being heard, and the system that had tried to silence her was now under her watchful gaze. Maya returned to City Hall the next morning, but this time she wasn't just a visitor. She was a professional on a mission. The lobby felt different, not hostile, not indifferent, but tense, as if the walls themselves had noticed a shift in narrative. People moved aside politely. Phones lingered briefly on her, and whispers followed her step, but no one approached. She was a presence now, unavoidable, precise, and purposeful. Caleb had reinforced the audit team, bringing in 2 additional analysts to cross-reference every transaction, every overtime claim, every vendor payment. Maya led them methodically, her voice steady despite the fatigue clinging to her shoulders. "Focus on the discrepancies flagged in the preliminary report," she instructed. "We need exact numbers, dates, signatures. No assumptions. Every claim must be verified." Hours passed in silence, punctuated by the hum of computers and the occasional clatter of keys. The office felt like a war room, though no bullets flew, only digits, invoices, and a quiet tremor of authority under scrutiny. Every time Maya saw the name Kessler or the badge number, her pulse tightened. She remembered the smake, the grip on her arm, the casual arrogance of unchecked power. A knock at the door broke her concentration. A young officer, clearly uncomfortable, entered holding a tablet. "There's a question about one of the transactions," he said, voice low. I think it's related to Officer Kessler." Maya gestured for him to step closer. "Show me." He handed over the tablet. There it was, a chain of overtime entries, approval signatures that didn't match, and purchases routed through untraceable accounts. Each anomaly traced back, directly or indirectly, to Kessler's precinct. She exhaled slowly, suppressing the instinct to snap. This was bigger than yesterday, bigger than individual misconduct. This was systemic. Angela leaned over her shoulder. "You're not just fighting him now," she said. "You're fighting everyone who let him get away with it." Maya didn't reply immediately. Instead, she methodically annotated the entries, highlighting each suspicious approval. "Exactly," she said finally. "And every one of these will be documented, cross-referenced, and presented." By midday, Caleb appeared in the office, face grave. "Maya, we need you to testify before the Oversight Committee next week. They want an initial briefing." Maya's fingers paused above the keyboard. "Do they know Kessler will be there?" Caleb nodded. "Yes, and the Internal Affairs team. They've been informed your report covers discrepancies under his supervision. This isn't just about numbers anymore. It's about accountability." Her stomach knotted, but she squared her shoulders. "I'll do it, but every statement must be precise. No exaggeration. No emotion used against me." Caleb's gaze softened. "I know. You'll do fine." The rest of the day was a blur of verification calls, cross-checks, and team briefings. Every time Maya's phone buzzed, she flinched slightly, expecting another threat or news of harassment. But nothing came. Yet, she knew the danger wasn't gone. The city had eyes everywhere, and some of those eyes were Kessler's allies. Late afternoon, she walked past the precinct across the street. Through rain streaked glass, she glimpsed Kessler at his desk, face pale as he scrolled through reports. Something about the slouch of his shoulders told her he knew the walls were closing in. Maya exhaled and whispered to herself, "It's all coming out." Angela caught up with her in the lobby. "You can't see it, but is panicking." "I can feel it," Maya said. "Every discrepancy we document is a pressure point. Every verified number, every email chain, it's another lever." Angela smiled faintly. "And you hold them all?" "Yes," Maya said, "but I can't let it become personal. This is about the system. If I slip into anger, they'll use it." Outside, the city seemed indifferent. Streetlights reflecting off with asphalt, cars gliding past, the constant hum of life. But Maya felt the pulse of something shifting beneath the surface. Accountability, slow but inevitable. Each audit line, each verified fact, was a quiet threat, invisible yet lethal to the shield of silence Kessler had relied on. By evening, the audit room dimmed under fluorescent bulbs, the team weary but relentless. Maya leaned back in her chair, hands clasped, staring at the spreadsheets glowing on the monitors. "We're not done," she said quietly, almost to herself, "but we're finally in their heads." Angela touched her shoulder. "And that's exactly where they'll feel it first." Maya nodded. "Good. Let's make them squirm." She returned to the data, verifying, annotating, connecting dots. Every entry told a story, about negligence, about misuse of authority, about one man's audacity. And every story would be told, meticulously, publicly, undeniably. The pressure was building, and soon it would break. The hearing room smelled faintly of varnish and stale coffee, a large oak table dominating the center. Maya sat on one side, shoulders squared, folders stacked neatly before her. On the other side, Daniel Kessler's presence filled the room, arms crossed, jaw tight, his gaze darting around as if seeking allies in a sea of chairs. Behind him, a few colleagues shifted uncomfortably, aware this was no ordinary inquiry. The committee chair, a woman with sharp eyes and a neutral tone, opened the session. "We are here to examine the circumstances surrounding the arrest of Maya Thompson outside City Hall. Ms. Thompson, you may begin." Maya exhaled, resting her hands atop her folders. "Thank you," she said clearly. "I was waiting in a designated area for my scheduled appointment. Officer Kessler approached me, demanded that I move, and when I refused, he arrested me." Kessler's lips tightened. "I followed protocol." He interjected. The chair raised a hand. "Mr. Kessler, please hold until Ms. Thompson is finished." Maya continued, voice calm but firm. "I was compliant with all posted instructions. I did not obstruct access. The arrest was unnecessary and publicly humiliating." A committee member leaned forward. "Ms. Thompson, you claim this was unjust. Can you provide evidence?" She opened the folder, carefully extracting a chain of emails, security camera logs, and witness statements. "These documents show the sequence of events. Officer Kessler's decision to arrest me contradicts internal protocols and bypassed multiple supervisory channels." Kessler shifted in his seat, fingers drumming the table. "Those emails don't tell the full story. She was insubordinate." Maya looked at him steadily. "I asked questions. I requested clarification. That is not insubordination, it is due diligence." Another member spoke up. "Were there prior complaints against Mr. Kessler?" "Yes," Maya said. "Internal affairs reports show 5 prior complaints, all dismissed. My arrest aligns with a pattern of behavior consistent with these complaints." The younger officer who had hesitated the day of the arrest stepped forward as a witness. "I was present," he said softly. "Kessler targeted Ms. Thompson without cause. She was calm. She did nothing wrong." Kessler's jaw tightened. "Is lying," he said. "You have a right to contest," the chair said firmly. "But the testimony is noted." Maya paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Every detail she presented, every witness statement, chipped away at the narrative Kessler had relied upon, unchecked authority, unquestioned privilege. The committee asked her to explain the audit's findings. She described discrepancies, overtime abuses, untraceable vendor contracts, falsified approvals. Every time Kessler interjected, she countered with documented proof. Her voice remained steady, her evidence undeniable. By mid-afternoon, the room's tension had shifted. Kessler's confident veneer cracked under scrutiny. Committee members exchanged glances, murmurs rising quietly but perceptibly. Questions grew pointed, almost accusatory. Finally, the chair leaned forward. "Mr. Kessler, are you aware that these discrepancies occurred under your supervision?" He swallowed, face pale. I was not aware," he stammered. Maya's eyes met his. Calm, unwavering. "With all due respect, sir, the evidence suggests otherwise." The younger officer added, "I saw approvals that should have required supervisory oversight. They were signed off without review." A silence fell. Kessler's shoulders slumped, the committee's scrutiny unrelenting. His allies in the room shifted uncomfortably. The power he had wielded casually, confidently, in a crowded City Hall lobby now faltered under the weight of documented truth. The hearing concluded with instructions for further review, but the message was clear. Kessler's impunity had ended. Maya packed her folders carefully, feeling the exhaustion that followed every confrontation of systemic abuse. Outside, the city hummed normally, unaware of the quiet reckoning inside. Maya exhaled, a mixture of relief and fatigue. The fight wasn't over, but the scales were tipping. And for the first time since her arrest, she allowed herself to imagine a day when accountability wasn't optional. The news broke quietly at first, in the form of an internal memo that spread like wildfire through the precinct. Kessler was suspended pending further investigation. The announcement was clinical, bureaucratic, but the implications reverberated through every corridor, every office, every locker. Officers who had once whispered in admiration or fear of him now kept their distance. Maya read the memo at her apartment, hands clasped over the table, stomach heavy but steady. The suspension didn't erase the arrest, didn't erase the humiliation, but it was proof that the system could bend toward justice when enough evidence, enough persistence, and enough courage aligned. Angela sat across from her, notebook open. "It's a start," she said. "Public hearings, disciplinary action, and, if internal affairs has done its job, possible charges. He can't just brush this aside anymore." Maya nodded slowly. "It's a start, but I keep thinking about the people who didn't intervene yesterday. The bystanders, the supervisors, even the officers who stayed silent." Angela leaned back, expression thoughtful. "They weren't ready for this fight. You were." Outside, City Hall felt different. Where Maya had once been a target, she now felt a cautious acknowledgement, subtle glances of respect from clerks and staff. The media followed the unfolding disciplinary process, detailing the audit's findings, highlighting procedural lapses, and finally naming Kessler as the officer under investigation. Social media buzzed with cautious praise for Maya's composure and meticulous record-keeping. At the precinct, whispers of accountability spread. Kessler's suspension left a void, and rumors of internal investigations and forced transparency circulated among officers who had relied on silence and inaction to protect their own. The union scrambled to mount a defense, but this time the defense had to contend with hard evidence, documented patterns, and public scrutiny. Maya attended briefings and meetings, her role as auditor reaffirmed, her professionalism unquestioned. Yet the experience had left its mark. Nights were restless. Her wrists throbbed occasionally. She had replayed Kessler's smirk too many times in her mind, each memory a reminder that authority could be wielded irresponsibly and without fear of immediate consequence. And still, she pressed on. Every meeting, every report, every recommendation carried the weight of yesterday's lessons. She insisted on complete transparency, on documenting every transaction, every email, every approval chain. Her presence in the room was a shield for the truth. One afternoon, the Internal Affairs Director called. "Maya, the evidence you provided, combined with witness testimony and audit documentation, leaves little room for doubt. Kessler's actions are being reviewed for formal charges." Maya allowed herself a quiet exhale. "It's overdue." "It's also necessary," the director said. "And your courage is noted. You didn't just expose misconduct, you force accountability." Later, As Maya walked through the same City Hall lobby where Kessler had humiliated her, she felt a subtle shift in energy. Staffers no longer glanced with judgment. The security team observed protocol strictly, and her presence was met with nods instead of suspicion. The city wasn't perfect. The system wasn't flawless. But it was starting to bend, if only slightly, toward justice. Angela met her in the parking lot. "You did this," she said softly. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone who might face the same thing." Maya looked up at the fading sunlight reflecting off the glass doors. "I just did what I had to. Facts, evidence, perseverance. That's what changes things." Angela smiled. "And maybe now, people like him know they are not untouchable." Maya's phone buzzed. Another update from Internal Affairs. Formal charges were imminent. The folder of evidence, once a symbol of fear and potential retaliation, now represented leverage, accountability, and resilience. She felt the weight on her shoulders ease slightly, replaced with a quiet satisfaction of a battle waged carefully, methodically, and won, not through vengeance, but through justice. Kessler's downfall was unfolding publicly, every misstep documented, every lie exposed. And Maya, though forever changed by the experience, had reclaimed the narrative of her own story. Justice, imperfect but real, was finally making its presence known. Months later, Maya returned to City Hall, folder in hand, but the weight she carried was different now. She was no longer the detained auditor outside the glass doors. She was a professional whose work had forced accountability, whose diligence had pierced the walls of indifference. The lobby smelled of polished floors and fresh paint, security officers following protocol instead of instinctive intimidation. She moved deliberately, heels clicking against tile, every step a quiet assertion of presence. Inside the office, her team awaited, laptops open, spreadsheets and financial ledgers glowing on their screens. Caleb gave a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of battles fought and partially won. Maya felt a swell of gratitude and fatigue. The public reckoning had not erased the stress, the humiliation, or the lingering distrust, but it had shifted the balance. Kessler had been formally charged. The internal investigation had revealed multiple procedural violations. The department faced mandated reforms. The system, slowly and imperfectly, was bending toward accountability. She set the folder on the table, flipping it open to review the latest findings. The numbers were clean, verified, and undeniable. Every discrepancy highlighted, every irregularity explained. The audit was complete, and the truth stood unchallenged. Her eyes drifted momentarily to the security camera near the ceiling, imagining the officer who once had the audacity to arrest her standing beneath it, powerless. Angela entered, carrying 2 coffees. "You've earned this," she said, handing one to Maya, "even if it doesn't feel like victory entirely." Maya smiled faintly, fingers brushing the rim of the cup. "It's not victory, not really, but it's standing anyway. That counts for something." Outside, the city moved with indifferent rhythm, unaware of the small seismic shift occurring inside its institutions. But Maya knew the impact was real. Complaints now had teeth, oversight was enforced, and the people who had been silenced before were beginning to speak. It wasn't perfect. The scars of yesterday lingered, and the personal cost had been steep. Yet resilience had replaced fear. A colleague approached. "They are holding a press conference later," he said. "They want to acknowledge the reforms, your work." Maya nodded. "Fine. I'll do it. Facts, evidence, accountability. No theatrics." As the day progressed, she moved through the halls with quiet authority, exchanging brief nods and greetings. Every step reinforced the truth. She belonged here. She had always belonged. The system had tried to suppress her, to diminish her presence, to erase her agency, but the truth, documented and persistent, was immutable. Later, standing before the committee in a follow-up session, she spoke clearly, methodically, her voice carrying the weight of months of work. Questions came fast and sharp, but she answered each with precision, evidence, and calm authority. The committee listened. Observers watched. The media noted. Kessler, who had once wielded power with arrogance, now had no words, no influence, no shield. The thin veneer of impunity had cracked entirely. After the session, Maya returned to the empty hallway, shoulders relaxing slightly. She paused, looking out the large glass doors of the bustling city beyond. Traffic moved in streams of silver and red. People crossed streets without noticing her. And yet she knew they were part of a system now being held accountable. Change was slow, incremental, sometimes barely perceptible, but it was real. Angela appeared beside her. "You've done more than most could imagine," she said quietly, "even knowing the cost." Maya looked down at her hands, then back at the city. "It wasn't just me," she said. "It was truth, documentation, persistence. Standing anyway." She drew a deep breath, letting the weight of the past month settle. "And that's enough for now." The elevator chimed. She stepped inside, pressing the button for the top floor. As the doors closed, she allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The fight had been long, exhausting, and painful, but she had reclaimed her agency, forced accountability, and held her ground. The world was imperfect. The system was flawed. People remained fallible. But for today, at least, she stood unbowed, a quiet testament to resilience, integrity, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. And outside, somewhere, the city took notice, slowly, imperfectly, inevitably.